cops. Cannonball, don't trust a cop. Johnny Spotswood just don't know when to stop. Yeah, and if you don't like it, you better take your ass up to the snooty box, cause this is the loud spot. Okay, see you later.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Loud Spot. I'm your host, Sebastian Cosme, right out of Oklahoma City. We got a great show for you tonight. Special guest co-hosting with me is Mr. Los from the podcast Malcocast. I almost said Malco crew again. How you doing, man?
Hey, man. What is up, Sebastian? Thanks so much for having me today as the guest host. What is up to you, and what is up to Andy Pohl, the man of the hour?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, y'all?
Well, I wanted to get you on the podcast for you kind of do a lot of different things. You have a record label, you have a podcast, and a kick-ass band that I love to listen to. But we are going to focus on your record label, Sell the Heart Records, which, by the way, he has T-shirts always for sale. They're absolutely fantastic. I bought the pink one because I didn't have a pink shirt, and I said I need to get a pink shirt. So let's talk about your record label and what you do for bands that you sign.
Sure. So, yeah, I started Sell the Heart Records about a little over 10 years ago. It was myself, actually, and a couple of friends. We kind of started this as like a group thing that eventually kind of ended up just kind of being more like my own thing. I mean, as a lot of, I think, things start in earnest with like a group. Mm-hmm. People get busy, and sometimes there's not enough to like keep people interested. And I mean, we had very little to do at the beginning except for just a brainstorm all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So I think eventually just some people just said, I don't really have time for this anymore. Oh, it's not really capturing my interest or whatever. But I was like kind of the one who was kind of spearheading the whole thing anyway. So I just kind of kept running with it. But yeah, I started off, I was living up in the Santa Rosa area, which is in the North Bay area of Northern California.
Oh, we know where that is. That's near my hometown of Vacaville. So
there you go. Yeah. And, I was up there working with mostly local bands, and, part of the idea was that I wanted it to be, kind of a way to showcase bands from that area. And, cause a lot of labels do that. Like they'll kind of focus in on like a certain area or region of like the state or wherever they're in. And, the North Bay area, Sonoma County, there had been other labels that had existed prior to me kind of starting this, but there wasn't really anyone really doing anything within like the punk and indie rock world per se. So wasn't so much that I was a trailblazer by any means, but we were one of like the only real entities kind of doing that. So mostly worked with local bands, and eventually kind of branched out and ended up actually earlier on working with a band out of Vacaville, actually. Do you know the band Build Us Airplanes?
I don't. I'm from
Never heard of
it.
No.
No.
No. Are you familiar with the band Monster Squad at all?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Monster Squad, yes.
Yeah, so one of the guys from Monster Squad was in Build Us Airplanes. It was like a side band he was in, and it was all Vacaville guys. And
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, helped release an album from them, it's a great album, by the way. Like, I mean, it's unfortunately one of those albums that I think didn't really get as properly served as it could have, because the band didn't so much break up shortly after, but they kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of fizzled out. Like they kind of stopped playing a lot. Mm-hmm. But it's an awesome record, like especially if you're into stuff like hot water music or like bands like Nothington or I don't know. There's like not so much Jawbreaker, but like bands kind of in that indie punk sound.
Okay, because Monster Squad is mostly like a gutter punk, right?
Yeah, Monster Squad is definitely more like that street punk kind of sound. Okay. But these guys were kind of a blend of more like kind of, I guess, punk rock and like indie rock.
That's cool. Yeah,
it's a great record.
So but they were your first. They were your first act on your record label.
No, they weren't the first. They were one of the first 5, though. The very first artist that we released a record from was actually the band I was in at the time. It was this instrumental, like, I guess for lack of a better word, like post-rock instrumental band called Snipers.
Okay.
Kind of think like Explosions in the Sky meets like Russian Circles meets like Pelican or Caspian or any of those like kind of heavier instrumental guitar driven bands. And
all these cool bands. Like, I wish I knew this many bands. Like, I know what the radio gives me and people on my podcast, but it's cool. I bet you're exposed to a lot of bands having the label. On top of being a musician yourself, and touring and stuff like that. But how many? Not to cut you off, but how many bands hit you up on like a regular basis wanting to be part of your label? Or better question is, do you turn down bands that want to be on your label?
You know, it's surprisingly not a ton of artists that hit me up. I mean, there are some for sure. I would say that on any given year, I probably get hit up by around like 10 or so, okay. You know, give or take a couple.
Right.
I think early on, like once I had kind of built up a little bit of momentum, it became this thing where a lot of people in like the local area were like, "Oh, you're putting out records. Like, do you want to help my band?" You know, like, and it was more like people that I already knew that were just kind of looking for somebody to kind of help them because, you know,
right.
I think for any band, especially like an independent band, part of the appeal of being with a label or being on a label is that, you know, there's like financial support that's going to come from that. Right now, you know, I always try to be very upfront with people and I tell them, it's like, listen, like, I'm not a big label. It's literally just me, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm not like, this is not going to be like a windfall for you. Like, I mean, at best, like I might be able to pay for the entirety of like the pressing of the record. And I might be able to like throw a couple of bucks at like online advertising for you, but that's pretty much it. You know,
I talked with a guy recently on my show and we were talking about the pros and cons of being signed to a record label. And I ask bands all the time that are on my show, you know, are they signed? And a lot of bands, some are, some aren't. And the ones that aren't tend to not want to be signed, or the ones that have been signed and are not anymore tend to not want to be signed. But what I had mentioned on the show was I think that people with no experience that don't have the money backing a record label, even today, can still help them out to push their music out there.
Yeah, what I generally try to tell the individuals or the bands that I'm working with that I'm best at serving them with is just my time and my energy, because what I can do is at least somewhat facilitate a bit of like an online presence for them through, you know, me posting stuff about their album or their band and trying to get a little bit of exposure out there. I mean, social media is not a silver bullet by any means, but I mean, this last year in particular, I think has really spoken to the idea that without live music, without live shows, like there's just a ton of white noise out there, you know, on the internet. Yeah. And how do you really differentiate yourself as a artist, you know, within all of that noise? And really,
bro, you have to go naked online, man. You have to start an OnlyFans, dude. You have to like chug a 2-liter bottle of milk or something. You know, you got to do something stupid.
Well, you're not wrong, actually. Like,
yeah,
I mean, and I'm not even really joking when I say that. It's like there are a lot of ways that as a musician or an artist or like a brand, like whatever you want to consider yourself, that you can gain an audience.
Yep.
But so much of it comes down to like, what is your authentic self and what is it that you are trying to really represent yourself as? If you don't give a shit, we can swear, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Too late. Yeah.
Too late. If you don't give a shit about having to like fit yourself within like a certain box, you know, and if you're just like, dude, I'm out here to entertain, like I'm out here to be a brand and like make art and like have fun and like all of that stuff, then you can literally do whatever you want. There's no rules, right? And you shouldn't really adhere to that. However, I think most bands and most artists try to confine themselves within like a little bit of like a set of rules for themselves so that they can pinpoint an audience that is really looking for them, you know?
Right.
Because when you cast too wide of a net, it can be a bad thing, because then you're spreading yourself so thin. But unless you're really, really good and you have just genuinely like mass appeal, that's probably not serving you very well.
You know what's funny is, and this is going to take you back to, I started TikTok, and I think it was part around the time you started TikTok. I think it's similar, and I watch your stuff and I share it sometimes. TikTok for me, what's cool about that is I could be my own person and do things when no one's looking, and as long as it's funny enough, I'll put it out there. And people on Facebook get upset. They're like, I didn't come on Facebook.
Saw that.
To see your TikTok. Well, then don't follow me. Don't follow me, because if I think it's funny, I'm gonna put it out there. But I get to be myself and do a bunch of stupid shit on TikTok, and TikTok is another way to grow your audience, because I put on my TikTok, follow me on YouTube, and then I do stupid other things that have nothing to do with the show.
But is there anything that you wouldn't do on TikTok to kind of gain that audience? I mean,
no.
Is there a boundary there, and what is it?
Well, if you're asking me, like, as far as like the way that I try to represent like the record label, because I don't like, I have a TikTok, but I'm not like on there a ton, to be perfectly honest with you. But I try to leverage TikTok like a little bit within the confines of what it's good for. So like, for instance, doing like little comedy bits or like something that I think might be clever or funny,
They're funny.
Just to kind of get attention, because like what Sebastian said is like, if you use it as a vehicle to just draw attention to your brand, it kind of doesn't matter what it is you're doing, as long as there's attention. And then it's on you to like point people in that direction of like, hey, like check out my YouTube channel, or like check out these bands, or like check out this record by this band that's on my label. I mean, as a vehicle to get in front of people, I think TikTok is fantastic.
Yep.
For that.
So
because there's a lot.
So I was
basically unlimited potential with that.
So Andy, I was reading an interview that you gave. I forgot where it was, where you were describing what you look for in bands that you sign on to your label, and I believe the quote was something to the effect of, "Well, if a band has great music but they suck at everything else, the marketing, the TikToking, the social media, then they're probably not going to be heard. They're probably not going to make it. But if the music sucks, but they're really, really good at social media and TikTok, they probably even won't get heard either, because the music isn't going to connect with people." So, given the whole landscape of everything that is out there with the social media, with the TikToks, what is that secret formula for getting heard?
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert, and like when I convey that kind of a message about like, you can be a great band, but be horrible at the business or the marketing side of things. And so that's going to leave you flat. Or you can be like, just an okay band, or like, you're writing like kind of generic sounding songs or whatever, but you can be great at it and you still may not be able to connect people. I mean, I think that's going to be true about any kind of art out there, like, so like a movie or like a comedian or like anything like that. But to answer your question, like, I think that it's just a matter of striking a balance between the whole thing. I mean, you have to practice your art. You have to become a better song crafter. You have to become a better, manipulator of what it is that you're trying to convey through your music or like your lyrics or like whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Because I personally think that there is, at least somewhat like a quantifiable way to determine like if something is good music, Now, that's not to say that there might be music out there that I think is horrible, but still tons of people are like gravitating to,
Right.
That happens all the time, However, I think that, if you're kind of writing like the kind of general